I'm CEO and founder of dailysocial.net, a tech blog that focuses on Indonesia. Now, I've been covering Indonesia's tech scene for quite a while, and one can see that the growth of the internet industry in Indonesia is really big. A lot of local players and also a lot of newcomers from foreign companies expand into Indonesia. Now, this presentation is made for Malaysia's Global Innovation and Creative Center. So first of all, I would like to thank you to my friend Daniel Cervantes and also Heis the Globe that has been working really hard to get me to KL with you guys, but unfortunately, due to some circumstances, I have to stay in Jakarta, but I'll be visiting KL very soon. So we all know Indonesia is huge. So before we start about the tips, tricks, and know-how on how to expand to Indonesia, let's talk about a few numbers. So in terms of population, we're one of the largest in the world. We have 255 million people by 2050. The number, even though it's huge, is still growing quite rapidly, adding 10 to 15 million people each year. So obviously this represents a lot of opportunities as well. And one of the biggest opportunity is in the middle class, which is why Indonesia is big currently on the internet industry. One of the reasons why Indonesia is highly attractive for technology companies is because of the middle class. Indonesia has 74 million people that are categorized as middle class, which is huge. They're spending money, they're starting to earning money. So this type of market actually highly consumptive, which is highly attractive for investors and for basically any kinds of business. Even though now we have 74 million people in this category, it is estimated that the number will double within 6 years, which is in the year 2020. So this represents a huge traffic growth in terms of market opportunities that available for any types of industry, but specifically in the internet, consumer, and lifestyle sector. Now, as I said earlier, we have 255 million people in Indonesia in terms of population. What the staggering number is, 15.4% of those people are connected to the internet. I know that number is not that big, but think about it, it's 15% out of 255 million. That's pretty huge. One of the early indicators of the maturity of an internet company is the growth of e-commerce, which is basically the reason why there's a lot of money thrown around to the e-commerce industry in Indonesia over the past 2 years by foreign companies and also some local investors as well. Now, why is e-commerce attractive in Indonesia? That's because the appetite and the demand is already there. 70% of all internet population in Indonesia show that their intentions of shopping online for the next 3 months, which shows that they're highly interested. They have the money, they have the demand. It's just that there's not a lot of e-commerce companies in Indonesia to begin with, which also represents lots of opportunities. And the growth of internet shopping is actually very high. If you can see on the chart, you can see the growth each year, annual growth. In 2012, it is 85% growth. In the next year, it's 73%. Although the growth has slowed down, but please remember that we're on a very infancy stage, which also still is 80%, 70%. That's still quite big. So let me show you a bit about the landscape of e-commerce in Indonesia. Obviously, there are tons of people from outside the country who expand to Indonesia, but we also have some really good talented local peoples. And there are a few classifications of e-commerce companies, and you can see that we have a few companies called Tokopedia and also Kaskus, and they're classified marketplace, Craigslist kind of e-commerce companies. And then we have a few online retailers, a few big ones, which is Bineka.com that sells computers, electronics, and also Blibli.com that basically sells everything. And on the payment side, we have some really good local players supported by some local banks. We have Doku, we have iPaymu, and we also have Indomo that focuses on gaming voucher and also like household internet, phone bills and stuff like that. On the price comparison side, we also have a few good local players. One of the biggest is Price Area, a local company that just recently got acquired by Yellow Mobile, a South Korean company, and also TheRinjuk.com. So, aside from the local players, of course we have the giants, the foreign players who came in Indonesia. I think most of them came in like 2 years, 3 years ago. On the classified / marketplace, we have OLX, which is one of the biggest classified sites in the world. Berniaga, who is based in Malaysia. Q10, which is a South Korean company, and also Japanese-owned Rakuten, which expanded, I think one of the first Japanese company expansion in Indonesia. We have a few big online retailers, mostly brought in by Rocket Internet, which is Lazada and Zalora. And we have payment side is actually quite interesting because these three are quite huge in Indonesia, and which is which is a Japanese and Indonesia joint venture. And also we have Coda Payments, which is based in Singapore, and also Malaysia's own MOL. But on the price comparison side, we have a few foreign players, but I don't think they're quite near the local players because Price Area and TheRinjuk is quite up there. These the three companies that just recently launched in Indonesia, which is Price Panda, which is owned by Rocket Internet, Priza, which is based in Thailand, and also a Japanese company that launches Price.com in Indonesia. And most of these are a regional player, but they have an operation in Indonesia. So, expanding to Indonesia, if you want to expand to Indonesia, there are a few things that I think you should know. Number one, probably one of the most important, is we Indonesians love social media. I'm sure you're quite familiar with that. But you're probably wondering why. The reason is, it resonates perfectly with our own culture. Indonesia has always been a social culture since hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And social media, Facebook, Twitter, basically just brings that culture that we used to do offline to online. We always hang out every weekend with our neighbors, our friends, neighborhood watch, gathering with all the housewives and stuff like that. It's pretty huge in Indonesia, and it's a big part of our culture as well. Social media, Facebook, Twitter just takes that culture online. So this is why when Indonesia is introduced to something like Facebook, Twitter, it's something that we're already familiar with. So we have no problem in adopting that kind of technology. So one of the proof is actually stating that 70 million of the entire population actually uses social networking sites. And one of the most interesting things is 90% of those are on Facebook. But Facebook is not the only big social networking sites in Indonesia, obviously, because Jakarta is Twitter's capital of the world. It produces more tweets than other cities in the world, even in the US, in Europe, in anywhere. It's Jakarta. Jakarta is also the second largest city on Facebook. But not just Jakarta, Indonesia itself is the second largest country for path outside of the US. Number one is the US. This shows that the potential of Indonesia in general, but also you can see that it's very Jakarta centric. I'll explain why it's very Jakarta centric. So we're still talking about social media, and I'm sure you've heard about the presidential election that happened in Indonesia a few months ago. And it was quite a phenomenon because it's nothing like anyone's seen before. It's not just huge for politicians and activists and stuff like that, but also towards the people. Now that they have platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Path, they started tweeting what they feel, what they think about what should happen, what shouldn't happen, about campaigns, their support towards one of the presidential candidate and stuff like that. It is one of the biggest internet phenomenon in Indonesia, and no one's ever seen that before. The only thing I've seen, going on Twitter, on Facebook, on basically the internet that's this big is back then when Obama, was elected as president of the United States of America. This is really the next big thing, and I don't have the exact number, but if I can assume, it's actually bigger than that, because literally everyone who's never been talking about politics or not in politics in any way, suddenly all sharing politic links, politic news, political thoughts and stuff like that. So I have a few data from Twitter and Facebook, basically justifying how huge this phenomenon was. Since early this year, since early 2014, Twitter has recorded 120 million tweets that is related towards the presidential election in Indonesia. Facebook did the same thing, 200 million, which it justifies. It shows you how massive this thing is. It is so huge. The role of Facebook and Twitter is very, very big towards Indonesian presidential election. Even Zuckerberg a few days ago came to meet the winner of the presidential election to show his support. This has shown that even Facebook recognized the potential of Indonesia on their roadmap ahead. So that's the first thing, social media. Next thing is mobile. Again, it is something that I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with about how big mobile is in Indonesia. Just to give some numbers on it, we have 88 million smartphone owners, and please note that this is unique people actually own smartphones. If you count from the number of SIM card issued, the number is actually almost 300 million, it's like 280 or 290 million something. And most people actually have more than one SIM card. So I think this is a more relevant number to justify how big the market really is. And another thing is, we have huge internet population, and 60% of those population actually access the internet using smartphones. We literally skipped the whole desktop era back in early 2000 because computers and laptops were still quite expensive and the market wasn't quite there. So I think when 2006, 2007, when a lot of massive movement from lower class to middle class, that's when the internet, the smartphone era really took off. People keep buying phones. We have like $1,000 Nokia communicator. It's quite expensive, but back then tons of people actually buy that thing. So it shows that the appetite and the demand is actually quite big in Indonesia. So another stat that I have is how active Indonesians are on the internet using their smartphones. On average, 661 pages per month per person are accessed via mobile internet. I have this data from Opera, the browser. So that's the second thing, which is mobile. Indonesia is always huge in mobile, and just like social media, it has to be taken into consideration for whichever activities that you do when you expand to Indonesia. But let me show you something that you should also be thinking about, is the online-offline connection. Although Indonesia is very active online, the fact is 48% of those activities online are triggered by offline events. For example, the number actually represents of the trader's trending topic. It's usually triggered by a TV show, a TV commercial, an offline event, a concert, or newspaper, or something like that. It shows that people, even though they're active online, offline is just as influential as doing an online marketing. So if you want to market your products towards Indonesia's middle class consumer, if it's a technology product, if you have an online presence, that's good. But remember, you have to consider doing some offline things as well. This, I think, also shows the level of maturity of Indonesian internet user. One of the most amazing phenomenon that I could share here is, I've known a few friends that work at e-commerce companies, and one of the phenomenon, very unique behavior of Indonesian users is they would go, browse online, they find the items that they like, and once they find it, they will call the company, the call center, and say, hey, I like this t-shirt, or I like this bag, does it come in different colors, and if okay, I like the price, can you order it for me and just show me where I can, wire the money, transfer the money. So they don't go to the website, click buy now and shopping carts and then fill in your payments and stuff like that. They don't. Now they're starting to, but I still the number of people that does things offline, not necessarily online, still quite big. Of course, this will mature through time. People will move to the full online model, but still needs to be considered. So the reason why is most people, like big companies, e-commerce companies now, also use offline methods. For example, like TVC, they put billboards, ads on the radio. It's quite popular for digital or internet companies. One of the reasons why is it pushes awareness towards people that aren't their market. And also to educate the people that you can buy things online using the internet, and this is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. So much, a lot of people actually, a lot of consumers actually think like, if this company can afford to put a TVC ad or can afford to put a billboard, this must be a credible company. It's a company that I can trust, rather than, oh, it's just some company that puts ads on Google or Facebook or Twitter, something like that. So those are the three things that you really want to consider when, in terms of expanding to Indonesia. So now let me share you a few tips about entering Indonesian market. And there's three ways for foreign companies to expand to Indonesia. Number one is you just enter all the way by yourself, and trust me, there's a lot of companies that are quite successful in that. But also you can partner with an Indonesian company and form a joint venture, or you can acquire a local company to build your presence in the country. And here are a few examples of companies that are quite successful in doing all these three. Here you can see like Baidu, Google, and Viber. Actually they enter the Indonesian market, by themselves, just set up a company. It's all foreign owned, and they have a good relationship with government, consumer agencies, and stuff like that. All good. But also you have a few companies that did joint venture with a local company. For example, Trans, which is actually based in Japan, but they now partner with a local partner and set up a joint venture here. Rakuten, initially they partner with MSA, one of the biggest second largest media company in Indonesia. And also you have Tencent, which is also partnering with MNC. But you can also see some few companies that acquired their way to be in Indonesia. For example, eBay that acquired Plaza.com, one of the early e-commerce players in Indonesia. Now they have their own site. They call it Belanja.com. You also have companies like Living Social, Groupon that acquires a local company, and obviously they're very, very quick. So let me share a bit about a few pros and cons on all these three methods of expanding to Indonesia. So if you enter alone, right, what are the pros? You have full authority of what you're doing, and that makes the decision-making process a lot more faster. But you have obviously you have a few things that weigh you down. For example, if you have to invest in local knowledge, because if you want to run an Indonesian company, obviously you have to put some Indonesian people on the decision making, involve them, and you have to hire some really good local people as well that know what they're doing, and that could be a hassle. And bureaucracy is one thing that is also weighing down Indonesia in terms of market. And although there's some really good progress, especially by the government, to try to cut through bureaucracy, but it's still there. And the other con is actually you have a full risk ahead, and it's all on you. It's quite heavy. For joint venture, the pros are you get a local talent, you get local knowledge, you have a local know-how, you have a partner that actually knows everything, and you can share and diversify your risk. So now you're like couples, and usually it's very effective if you want to bypass some restrictions by the government, because these local people really know how to do things, how to connect to people, how things work and stuff like that. But joint venture also has its downside, which is you have to share the rewards as well. Obviously, because there's two brains, makes a slower decision making, and also there's always a potential for disagreement. For example, this would happen to Rakuten and MNC in Indonesia. They entered as a joint venture, but I think after 1.5, 2 years, they decided to split up. Now MNC is with Tencent, and I think Rakuten has been doing things on their own as well. So that's joint venture. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of acquiring a local company. And it is by far the fastest way to expand on a market. Acquire a local company, boom, you're there. You gain authoritative control because you're acquiring a majority controlling stake on the company that you acquired, and it lets you grow faster as well. And also you have a talent pool that is immediately available for you to use. And but of course the cons are you have to dig your pockets deeper for acquisition.
Sure.
As a foreign company who wants to expand to Indonesia, you really need to pay attention to the government. The government has been pushing lots and lots of regulations in order to protect the consumer, the Indonesian people, against all these foreign companies, and make sure the ecosystem is still balanced in our favor, obviously. In 2007, the President issued something called negative investment list, which is a list of industries where the government is very protective. The few regulation where foreign ownership can only be 49% or 60%. Some industry are highly protected, that just cannot be any foreign ownership at all. So these are a few of the list of industries that are on the list, negative investment list. As you can see, like for retail, consumer retail, it has to be 100% local owned. For domestic transportation, this would include like taxi companies, maximum 49%. So still locally has to be majority. And then there's like telco infrastructure that has also the same maximum 49%. And there's a few like media, the government is highly protective. It has to be 100% locally owned. So back in 2010, the government issued a few changes and revision towards the list, and you can download it. You can just Google negative investment list for Indonesia, and you can just download it. If you have any questions regarding tips, know-how, and everything about expanding to Indonesia, I would love to jump on Skype and just chat with you guys directly. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hands, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to meet all of you in person.